really conscious kid. I think even more so than most others. I think it may have had something to do with the fact that I was raped when I was 3 years old. And I was one of those kids, thank God, that would tell, because most kids don't. Even when you tell them, you know, as much as you can, that I'm here for you, make sure if something ever happens to you, most kids don't tell. But I did, because I had a really amazing, strong father with a football player body. So I knew that he could protect me.
She came to me and her dad, and she said, I can't say it, y'all, in a minute.
It was a very, I remember everything. They would tell my parents that I wasn't gonna remember anything, but I remember every detail.
So this one day after the babysitter had been there and took care of my kids, did a great job, she told me the next day that he had touched her. And I told me and her dad, and it was it blew my mind.
So it was a babysitter, somebody very close to us. He was watching me and my brothers, and I remember us watching TV, and I was a yeller. I can't remember which brother had a butter knife, but to me it was a knife. And I said, put that knife down. And the babysitter said, I told you if you yell one more time, you're gonna get it. So I thought I was getting a spanking. He said, get in the room. And I remember it being really dark. And I remember him saying, lay down and take your clothes off. And he left the room for a second. And I was so scared, I was shaking. And I remember him bringing back Crisco. I can't smell Crisco to this day. It makes me sick to my stomach. The shortening. And I remember him using it on himself. I remember the smell of it. I can't stand it. And so I remember it wasn't, I was too small in the front. And so he turned me over. And I remember my spirit escaping my body and hovering over and watching what was happening. And I felt myself hurl myself into a corner and ball up. And I think I blacked out, because the next thing I remember was the pain, and I was back in my body, if that makes sense. And I remember limping out of the room and being really, really, really quiet. And my brothers were acting up, and usually I would be handling them or helping to handle them. And I just didn't. I just watched TV, and I remember feeling really numb. Not physically, but numb spiritually.
When that happens to your child, it never, ever, ever goes away. You know.
The next morning, I was still kind of limping. And I remember my dad saying, what's wrong with you? Why are you limping like that? And I said the babysitter's name. And I said he put his thing inside me. And I knew that. I was like, he'll handle it. My dad will handle it. My mom was a little bit more passive at the time. And she was young, you know? At that time, I think my mom was 18, 19.
I didn't even know how to react, how to respond.
And I remember him yelling and screaming at my mom, and my mom shaking. And then they gathered the whole family, and I remember going from family member to family member, tell me what happened, tell me what happened, tell me what happened. But I think the worst part of it was nothing ever happened no consequences ever happened to him. So I grew up thinking nothing bad happens to bad people. So it's best just to keep your mouth shut. Even though people call me an empath. And I believe in the good of man first. Can we stop?